Well, there can't be many people watching this that don't know this particular title, and thanks to so many people on this channel hassling me to take another look at this one since it came out on 4K disc recently, and having recently got through Everything Everywhere All at Once unscathed, I thought it was finally time to take another look at Quentin Tarantino's 1994 classic, Pulp Fiction. I was one of those rare ones perhaps that really didn't like this one back in 1994 when I saw it at the cinema, but it's one of those films that stayed with me, and although I really did get badly affected by the male rape sequence, it wasn't only that, it was the bad language all the way through it, which at the time was still somewhat shocking. I mean, we take it a little for granted today, but the violence, the hitmen, John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson, they seem to take killing people for granted. It's almost as though human life doesn't matter, and I didn't like that. And the way the chap's head is blown off in the back of the car and they're instantly covered in blood all over the place, I really didn't find it funny at the time, but it's funny really how things move on. And today I was watching this and I could see it was all tongue-in-cheek, but the male rape sequence, the bad language, the violence, really there's quite a lot about this that may offend some people out there, as it really did me, I suppose, back in 1994. But the funny thing is, as I've got older, the reverse has happened, and what once offended me perhaps doesn't offend me so much today. But there's some things about this that I always like. The dance sequence with Uma Thurman and John Travolta, I always thought that was a classic. I thought it was hilarious, and it was self-deprecating on the part of John Travolta, and I really liked that about him. But the reason I came to look at this again finally was all the hassle on here, but most notably Clark Teddles down in Australia. That young man got into a projection box to shoot a 35mm projector, actually showing this film on a big screen, and you could see when he briefly put the camera through the porthole, you could see the quality of that film on the screen, and that quality is on this 4K disc. Now, it was released, I believe, in 2020 on Blu-ray, and that's the date on the Blu-ray disc in this. The Blu-ray is good, but you look at the 4K and all of a sudden the Blu-ray is not so good. In fact, compared to the 4K at times, I'd say it even looks poor. That's a bit harsh because it really is good, the Blu-ray, but this 4K, it's not the best 35mm transfer I've seen so far onto 4K disc, but it's not too far off, and that was what people were telling me, and that was what intrigued me, because I remembered this was a good looking film, almost too clean at the cinema. I think I saw it at the Renoir in the Brunswick Centre just off Russell Square, which wasn't the ideal place to see a big film, but it was the only place it was on when I got to see it, so I went there, and it was just up the road from me, so a couple of blocks away, so it was quite handy in that regard. But it really didn't give a good impression going into that cinema, and had I seen it in Leicester Square, I might have thought more highly of it, or not thought quite so badly of it, is perhaps another way to put it. But one other really good bit of humour in this that's perhaps a little hidden is that it seems that every time something important happens in the plot, the John Travolta character is in the bathroom. And I didn't spot that when I first saw it, but this time it wasn't lost on me. And every time there's a major facet of the plot, something vital is happening, where's John Travolta's character? He's in the toilet. So that was something that gave me a good laugh this time. But also I noticed, and this is mentioned in one of the extras, now the extras are all on the Blu-ray with one or two of them on the 4K, so you have to put the Blu-ray in for all the extras, and it's mentioned in one of those that the screenplay for this is not what we had come to expect with screenplays where everyone was following how to write a screenplay instructions. Well, Quentin Tarantino clearly didn't do that, because it starts at the end, then it goes to the middle, then it's back to the end, and that actually works. Once you know it's coming, that actually works. It didn't work for me in 1994. I thought, what on earth is going on here? It all seemed a bit strange, but it was different, and that's something I didn't appreciate at the time. But anyway, the 4K disc is a real winner. The colour, the density, the contrast, I should say, absolutely fabulous. There are some 4Ks that have come from a 35mm that I prefer the look of, but everyone's system is different, and I'm certainly finding that at the moment with this new Uhd 50 Optoma video projector that we've invested in. It is markedly different to the Optoma UHD 550X, where the 4K was so easily distinguishable from the Blu-ray on that one. On this projector it's a little more subtle, and the colour isn't so vivid, so vibrant, but the definition is superior. And this is one where we've got a 2020 Blu-ray, as I said, and now this 2022 4K, and it does look sharper, more well defined than the Blu-ray, and that's not something I saw very often with the 550X. So things are moving on, and that's something for us video disc collectors, particularly us 4K collectors, to be very pleased about. The sound is DTS-HD, and it sounded excellent in here through my THX Ultra. I would imagine it will sound good on just about everything, but perhaps not up there with some of the more recent releases that do tend to throw the sound all over the place. This one's a little more subtle, but I thought it worked very well with the imagery. So in summary, I think this is another excellent 4K release that can be recommended, highly recommended. And remember, this is from a 35mm negative, it's not from a 65mm negative, VistaVision, Technorama or any of the larger film formats. It's just 35mm, almost at its best, and an indication of how good that film format is, and why, in my opinion, it should still be utilised by filmmakers around the world today, if not all of them. But many of them should be pushing to use these best tools of the trade. So recommended, particularly if you like Pulp Fiction. If you haven't seen it, bear in mind a lot of bad language, violence and a few other things, but it is supposed to all be tongue-in-cheek. Bit of drug use too, which I failed to mention, sorry about that, but a bit of drug abuse, so that's something else I don't like, and another reason why I probably didn't appreciate it in 1994. But don't take it seriously, it's actually quite funny if you let all these other things slide by. Now, I know I've been updating you various times, but finally got through the 5th episode on Blu-ray of Cursed Films, the Twilight Zone The Movie episode, which I did think when I watched the stream was the best of the 5, and I am still of that opinion. This is an excellent disc for anyone who loves these sort of horror films, or science fiction films really, in the case of Twilight Zone The Movie. So I have seen this one around now, as I mentioned in my last video. It was on sale in FOP, I think it was £10 in there, so it's pretty good value. And 50th anniversary of The Exorcist this year, so quite a good timing to get this one in preparation for that 4K release that is inevitably coming, and is indeed in the Warner Brothers 100th anniversary box set that's coming out soon. So hopefully an individual release of The Exorcist sometime after that. Right, and now that I've mentioned FOP, part of the HMV group, LeShark75 has been into his Manchester branch of HMV and shot this video for us. I will leave a link to LeShark75's channel in the description below, but this Manchester branch does look like an extremely good representation of HMV, so I'm very excited to see this. Anyone else who would like to see their local HMV featured on this channel, please do get in touch, and let's make it so. Right, I think that brings us to the end. Only one other thing to say, and that is I might not get this video up in time before I head off to the IMAX again, because this coming Thursday, 16th of March I think it is, Dunkirk is on at the BFI IMAX, and I ain't going to miss that one, I can tell you that. So I think that showing's 8 o'clock in the evening. I expect to be in the foyer sometime before that, so maybe I'll see a few of you there. Michael is coming over from Germany, Daniel's coming over from Sweden, so let me know where you're coming in from. Let's all get together in the cafe area or the bar for a cup of tea or something stronger before the film starts. Then maybe after it ends we can all have a quick chat before we head off home or back to our hotels, whatever we're doing. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and perhaps consider subscribing, so I'll be encouraged to carry on creating content like this. Until the next video, bye bye for now.